Penn State is set to be without a very important member of the secondary. Johnny Dixon has officially opted out of the Peach Bowl against Ole Miss. Does that mean that this game could turn into a shootout?
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into a live Locked On Nittany Lions. Thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I am your host, Zach Seyko, and Johnny Dixon there were rumors of this. Just because it took so long to make a decision, but here we are within that 24-hour window, and Johnny Dixon is not playing. We get a little more clarity on just how this decision came together and what it ultimately means for Penn State's secondary pass defense. And we'll talk about if this one could get out of hand defensively and we could see both offenses put up a lot of points. Before we get into our discussion, I appreciate each and every one of you for joining the show. Let me know in the comments what you think about this move by Johnny Dixon and how you think it will affect the outcome of the game. And help out the channel. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Become an everydayer. I appreciate you more than you know if you already are an everydayer. So Johnny Dixon has more officially opted out. There was no statement. We did have some reporting that came from HappyValleyInsider.com, Penn State rivals. They were the first ones to really just put the announcement out there that, hey, this was a possibility. Sources close to Johnny Dixon say that he is not going to play in the Peach Bowl, but when was that decision coming? When was that graphic going to show up and go out on social media saying, hey, I'm not playing in the Peach Bowl. I'm going to focus on the NFL draft. We did see that he opted into the Senior Bowl, but that was really all we had about Johnny Dixon. So, but then you go to practice. I'm still comfortable in the state of Pennsylvania, did not travel for the Peach Bowl, but the media members that were there said, we're looking around and said, okay, hey, Trey Wallace is here. Abdul Carter is practicing. Johnny Dixon isn't anywhere to be found. That's interesting that he's not at practice. So you put two and two together. James Franklin did how many Peach Bowl press conferences? He let us know about Kalen King's decision to play and also alluded to the fact that this will be his final game as a Nittany Lion unless something completely changes. And then now we have an answer about Johnny Dixon. So Dixon opting out of this game. It is not playing, and that means that the current rotation will be Kalen King, no Johnny Dixon. You do have Daquan Hardy, and most likely Cam Miller. So your two boundary corners here are Kalen King, Cam Miller, and then your slot is still Daquan Hardy. But this is where it really affects the defense, because now we got to talk about Kalen King's situation. Kalen King is not playing a full game. He's not playing 100% of snaps. He might be alternating drives, for example. Maybe he plays the first drive, and then plays the third, right? And the fifth, and then the seventh. Or he's going to be used in obvious passing situations, third and medium, third and long, in the red zone, right? Because James Franklin in that one presser said that Kalen King and Penn State were able to agree to a game plan, right? That he was going to have a specific plan for this game because they want to protect his draft stock at the end of the day. So now you have no Johnny Dixon. You have probably half the availability of Kalen King, which puts a lot more attention, a lot more responsibility on Cam Miller, who Penn State is very high on. They think that he can be that next, I don't want to say lockdown, shutdown, because Joey Porter Jr. set the bar pretty high, but Cam Miller can definitely be a solid cornerback for Penn State. And that's why you have the offseason for him to get better. But he instantly vaults into that number one cornerback next season. So this is the chance to do it when you have the wide receiver core that Ole Miss does, where any of them can act as a number one. So I would like to see Cam Miller matched up on Trey Harris, who is more of that obvious first choice. Trey Harris is 8 touchdowns for Ole Miss. So he's going to be a challenge, but he actually doesn't have the most receptions out of them. But besides the point, out of that trio, Jackson Dart spreads the ball around evenly. Trey Harris has 47 receptions. The other two counterparts have 52 and 53 respectively. So it's a pretty even pace when it comes to that offense for Ole Miss. But now you think about, okay, Kalen King's going to be not as active in the rotation, meaning that it's going to be I think we're going to see Daquan Hardy play a full game because I still think he has a lot left to prove. I think that, yes, scouts are probably interested in his special teams ability because look at him. He becomes a punt returner overnight and has multiple touchdowns in the season for someone with limited punt returning experience after high school. So his special teams ability is interesting at the next level. But what about his defensive back? His pass defense? I think he's been really good. I think he came up strong this season after a down year in 2022. He was certainly not himself for whatever reason, but then bounced back strong in 2023. He has a lot to prove if he wants to play defensive back in the NFL. Cam Miller is going to see an increase in snap count. So who is up next? This is where it gets interesting. What is Penn State going to do? Are you going to put Elliott Washington out there on those veteran wide receivers for Ole Miss? Are you going to put Zion Tracy, Lamont Payne, who we haven't seen a lot of? Those are first-year freshman cornerbacks. What I think Penn State's going to do is what they've been doing for a lot of the season, and we saw this when Daquan Hardy wasn't available, and they had to rotate other guys in. They moved the safeties. That's all they did. I don't think they're going to put Elliott Washington out there. They might see some plays, but not for a majority of the game. You have KJ Winston coming back. I think we have Jalen Reed should be coming back. Jalen Reed, I anticipate. But those two, that dynamic duo at safety could be one of the better duos in the Big Ten next year. And yes, with the additions of those Pac-12 schools, those two are very good outside of just zone coverage. They can play man-to-man, and we've seen that. Jalen Reed go down into the slot. KJ Winston go into the slot as well, whether it's covering a tight end or a slot receiver. So that is what Penn State's going to do. I don't think they're going to try to challenge. This is not a challenging moment. You will see Elliott Washington get some playing time. I think you'll see Zion Tracy. Don't forget about King Mack as well. He's played some time in the slot, but Daquan Hardy's still playing in this game. So maybe not so much of King Mack, but more so of Elliott Washington, I would say, is the best of that bunch that I've named here for the freshman defensive backs. And remember, you can take these safeties and put them in man-to-man coverage because you still got Zach Wheatley. You have Zach Wheatley that can play center field and be that free safety, and he can play man coverage too. But I'm saying Penn State will have more safeties on the field rather than boundary cornerbacks, with Kalen King probably playing about half of the snaps here, maybe even less. You know, that's just the fact of the matter. He's playing. Johnny Dixon is not. You do have Daquan Hardy, who I think is going to play a full game, as many snaps as he can, because this is his last chance to prove himself. So does that mean that this Peach Bowl is going to turn into a high-scoring affair, a shootout, if you will, because Ole Miss plays at one of the fastest tempos in the country, and Penn State, things are trending in the right direction for Trey Wallace. We don't exactly have confirmation that, yes, he is playing, but unlike Johnny Dixon, he was at practice. So Penn State has its full artillery here to go with its passing attack against Ole Miss. We'll discuss in just a moment here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That is right, $150 if your team simply wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. And right now, the lines are moving. Penn State opened at 2.5. Then it moved to 3.5, and it stayed there. Now, 4.5, according to FanDuel, and the total has moved to 49.5. You see the Johnny Dixon opt-out has some impact here. So FanDuel has the lines moving. If you still like those lines, you can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and keep playing along with college football and keep playing along with the NFL. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And the Locked On Podcast Network is making history. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day. with the local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering each and every league. Go to Locked On Sports today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. I'm looking for your comments, your questions about this game, your predictions as well. I think Penn State still wins 27-24 because let's discuss just that. A shootout type of game. Is it on the way here with Penn State losing an all-important defensive back? Johnny Dixon is very good, and it would have been nice to have him against Ole Miss's passing attack that sports not one, not two, but three capable wide receivers that are all talented, and are all veterans too. Trey Harris, Dante Wade, and Jordan Watkins. It just means there's more responsibility for Cam Miller. And we'll see what how Penn State approaches it. I think they'll have the safeties step up in coverage. So that's why I don't know that this does turn into a high scoring, fast pace where Penn State just totally obliterates its game plan, because that's not going to be how Penn State approaches Ole Miss. You don't get into a shootout with Ole Miss because that's exactly what they want. That is exactly what they want. And what Penn State can do to counter this is the 10, 11 dozen play drives that are just slow and methodical, ball control, wear out the defense so that eventually they keep bending, and then they break. And then they don't respond later on in the game. And that's why it's so important to have Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen and Trey Potts, because those guys are going to be at 100%. That defense, if Penn State does this right for Ole Miss, will not have the energy to go with them for a full 4 quarters. And especially if Ole Miss's offense, runs at that same rate of they're averaging between plays about 18 to 20 seconds. That is fast. So meaning that it hurts Ole Miss's defense. And then if Penn State just keeps them out there on the field, do I think Penn State can keep up with Ole Miss in a shootout? Absolutely. Does Penn State want to be in that situation? No, you don't. I would think with the former 5-star quarterback, getting Trey Wallace back, having Theo Johnson, Tyler Warren, both available in this game, and then Keandre Lambert-Smith, Caden Saunders, Liam Clifford, Malik McClain, and don't forget about Dante Cephas, who really now should know the playbook by now at this point. So yes, Penn State can go up against Ole Miss in a shootout, but that's how they want to play this game. Ole Miss does not want to get into a game where its defense has to stay on the field for a long time, and Penn State plays ball control and tries to wear them out. So that's the formula to do it. Ole Miss's defense is okay. They're above average. They played SEC competition, so you're going to see some lapses in coverage and lapses in tackling and stuff because they played, better competition. But it's not like Michigan and Ohio State's defense. Ohio State's defense for the regular season had the number 1 pass defense. Michigan was top 5 in those categories as well. And that's what Penn State went up against. When you're looking at Ole Miss in comparison, top 50 in both passing and defending the run. So I don't think a shootout game is going to happen. I think it's going to be 27-24 Penn State. And I think they'll probably be up by 10 going into the 4th quarter. And then Ole Miss will get a late touchdown to make this a closer game, make it a little more interesting in this case. But Penn State's identity is that they're not going to. So let me explain this. Andy Kotelnicki is on staff, but he's observing. This is not his offense. This is not an early version of his offense. This is still what Mike Yurcich started and what Jay One-Sider and Ty Howell are now fixing and keeping it together, because you can't do that in a month's time. All right, new offensive coordinator. Let's learn a completely different system, because that's how you create a lot of confusion and a lot of mistakes. And let's do it all in 30 days before a bowl game that has no season implications. It does not affect 2023, and it does not affect 2024. So this is still Penn State's offense from 2023. What does that mean? What did they do all season? They played ball control. They wore out defenses. They relied on the ground game first, and Drew Aller did everything in his power not to turn the football over. When I look at that passing prop, and I've already brought this up in the preview, 182 yards, that's too low. Do I think Drew Aller has something around 250? Maybe, but something that's a 300, 350, 400-yard game is not in the cards for this Penn State team. It's not. The offense still is what it is. do I think Keandre Lambert-Smith, Dante Cephas, and whoever's that third wide receiver for them, Trey Wallace, collectively, have they gotten better? Well, they have to because there really wasn't anywhere else to go since they just had an underwhelming season. But I think building that chemistry, understanding the plays a little better, resting, right? There's all that time to rest and rejuvenate. Those guys together can have a passing attack that can keep up with Ole Miss. But Ole Miss, they want that. And you don't want to play into Ole Miss's hands and just say, well, we can do it, so we might as well play to it. No, that's not the case here. Let's go back to Ole Miss's schedule. And LSU had the top offense in the country, and it wasn't even close. They were the best in terms of yards per play. And you know, whatever. Brian Kelly, kudos to him, right? Good for him. But Ole Miss won that game. They were able to outscore the best offense in the country. So that's what I'm saying. You were playing right into the wheelhouse, the skill set of this team. You don't want to do that. You want to freeze this offense out. You want to make them go ice cold. You want them to sit on the sideline because that's how they get into a rhythm. They outscored LSU 55-49. Best offense in the country. And that's what they were able to do, even though they went 10-2 and are in this New Year's Six Bowl, not in the college football playoff, just like Penn State. But my point is, don't do what Ole Miss wants to do. They want to turn this into an offensive game, make it a defensive game, get pressure, and then keep that offense on the sideline. I think Penn State will stick to that plan no matter what. If they do have to make some adjustments, well, that's how, that separates good coaches from bad coaches. If they have to make adjustments, they get down. I think that Penn State has enough to get back in and stay in the game with Ole Miss in case something does happen. A fluke turnover. You never know. You never know what could happen early on in the game that dictates the pace of it. But if Penn State does fall behind by 2 scores, they can keep up with Ole Miss if they have to. You don't want to because it does play into Ole Miss's game plan. That's how they want to approach it. I say that Penn State still keeps it under wraps. They have the better defense. They're better in the trenches. They have running backs. I think Quinshon Judkins is very good and is comparable to Singleton and Allen, but Penn State has Singleton and Allen. Ole Miss just has Judkins, okay? And Penn State just overall, I think, is a more talented team, even with the opt-outs of Johnny Dixon and Chop Robinson now. But shootout game, it's possible, but it's not likely because that's not how Penn State wants to play this game. They want to be the exact same team they were all season, ground and pound, control the line of scrimmage, good defense to set up the offense, and the offense just plays a clean game, no turnovers, and is just methodical for the entirety of 4 quarters. And because Ole Miss's defense is not great, they're above average. They're above average, and they played SEC competition, so those numbers are a little inflated. But this is not a top tier defense. So Penn State will be able to move the football, and that's why I think it's 27-24 because Ole Miss can score at will, but it's going to be a little tougher against this Penn State defense. Now, Ole Miss is trying to manufacture some bulletin board material. I was going to discuss the Johnny Dixon opt-out, and I said, man, I need a third segment here. What am I going to do in this live show? Ole Miss seems to be starting drama, creating fake Penn State fan accounts on X, formerly known as Twitter. That's interesting. Well, we're going to look into that a little further and do some investigations here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the #1 daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on a 2 to 6 player stat projection and watch the winnings roll in. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. PrizePicks is really simple to play. You make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. And with quick withdrawals going along with that easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. And with the PrizePicks reboot policy, your plays entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For NFL games, college football top 25 matchups, If you have a player that exits the game in the first half and does not return for the second half, that player is then rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege, promo code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. And if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate all the everydayers. Join the community as we discuss Penn State football and so much more. So an interesting twist here to Penn State versus Ole Miss. I really didn't see any sort of banter, any back and forth. There's mutual respect for Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin was a little funny on social media early on, wishing Chop Robinson well after he opted out of the game and said, we won't miss you in the football game. And it's fun. It's good sportsmanship. But now we have an interesting alleged case here with what's going on. So I do want to shout out the investigative work from some Penn State accounts that found this. Okay, so there's this mysterious Penn State X account, formerly known as Twitter. We are _ Penn State, like Penn State ST. And it just popped up out of nowhere, and it was getting all these impressions, all these retweets and likes. And Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss's head coach, was even retweeting these. And it's like, okay. And it was talking, they were talking some smack here, interestingly enough, saying making fake quotes, manufactured quotes by Kobe King. Kobe King didn't do any press conferences that would have said any of these quotes, and talking about the tight end Caden Prieskorn of Ole Miss, and talking a lot of smack here. And Lane Kiffin was reposting these tweets, these posts from this fake Penn State account. Well, interestingly enough, when I say this account just popped up, no, this account literally just popped up. And it was December 2023 when this account was made. So allegedly, what the Penn State fans and some of the reporters have found out is that this was a fake account created by Ole Miss's football staff. That's weird. That's suspicious. Penn State fans, and I will shout out the Basic Blues for finding this as well. Basic Blues posted this and went viral, and rightfully so. And you can reset the password and see what email it's associated with. Well, you can't see all of the letters of the email, but you have some characters. So it says JF *** at O *** dot whatever the org or com. You kind of have to make your best guess. Well, you match some letters. It's almost like playing Wheel of Fortune at this point. And then you match the letters to it, and there is a staff member on Ole Miss's team. Fisher Ray is an offensive assistant, works with the quarterbacks, and his email is jfrey at olemiss.edu. And those letters match up. Like I said, this is like Wheel of Fortune here. Do I get the prize? Do I get the free vacation for matching this up? If you're going to make a burner account, maybe use a burner email and not a university affiliated email. So Ole Miss manufacturing fake bulletin board material to get the fan base riled up, the players riled up. I'll shout out Tyler Donahue as well of 24/7, because he was the one that clarified the situation, particularly with Kobe King. He's saying, just adding that this is not a legit quote. Kobe King never said this. So I don't know what Ole Miss is doing here. So the neutral fans see this and they find it funny. They think it's cool. But when Lane Kiffin's retweeting it, and he didn't retweet or repost anything else on X about the friendly Penn State Ole Miss banter back and forth, other than saying, hey, good luck to you, Chop Robinson. Other than that, the night before kickoff, and this is what, if this was over the course of the month and you found some other people saying certain things, but making up quotes that a player didn't say and kind of throwing some shade at your own players. I just think it's not right. It's weird. I guess it's funny to some when you have no rooting interest in this game between Penn State and Ole Miss, but I don't really have any much more than that. It's unnecessary drama. It's childish, and it doesn't make any sense to me. It's not on par. It's not on theme. So I don't know how involved Lane Kiffin actually is. Did Lane Kiffin instruct an Ole Miss staffer to create a fake account? Was this Ole Miss staffer? Did he go rogue? I don't know, but it is weird that all of these things are linked up. And again, this is all alleged because we don't have full proof. But the JF and .o at the is pretty interesting, pretty incriminating. This account only has 7 posts and was made in December of 2023. And who knows, was probably made either yesterday or even today and is posting fake things about what Penn State players said. Maybe you can, have spirited, like I said, spirited banter, but the fact that Kobe King was attributed some fake quote to try to rile up to try to rile up the fans, to try to rile up your players. Do you really need to create that kind of fake? That tells me something about Ole Miss more than it does about anything else. Is that if you need fake Twitter X posts to rally your team, that says a lot about the coaching staff that they're not able to do that. Who knows? Maybe they didn't have that intention in mind. Maybe this was just for fun, but I don't really see it that as that much fun. So I appreciate all of you checking out the live show. One final preview before Penn State Ole Miss kicks off the Peach Bowl, noon Eastern time, Atlanta, Georgia, the Atlanta Falcons Stadium. The roof is going to be closed, so a reminder that there is no weather implications in this game. Penn State's currently a 4.5-point favorite. The total has moved to 49.5 because of the opt-out of Johnny Dixon, and we'll see how the game unfolds. Again, my final score prediction is 27-24. Let me know in the comments what your final score prediction is, and we'll have a live recap tomorrow after the game. So subscribe if you haven't already. Be here and ready to go for that live post game. We'll recap it all. The Peach Bowl, Penn State versus Ole Miss, right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.